Hello everyone. Today we're going to be taking a brief look at the debate over net neutrality in the age of Web 2.0 and how the concept of net neutrality affects new media discourse. I will be sharing with you arguments that are both for and against net neutrality, but I won't really be arguing for either side. My main goal is simply to present you with the basic information that you need to form your own opinion. But before we delve into the debate over net neutrality, let's take a brief look at what exactly net neutrality is so that we all have the necessary context for understanding both sides of the debate. Net neutrality, also known as network neutrality or internet neutrality, is the opinion that no internet service provider or government agency should restrict consumers' access to any content or sites on the internet or the speed at which they access them. In very basic terms, net neutrality is the idea that all internet users should be treated equally and on a first-come, first-served basis. This concept of equal access to technology and its associated services dates back to the days of the telegraph, but it has found a new significance in the rise of Web 2.0. Today, some internet service providers are proposing tiered service offerings that violate net neutrality principles, mainly by restricting users' access to competing sites or content, or simply by slowing down access to competitor sites and speeding up access to their own. To give a very simplistic analogy, this would be like Google restricting Google Chrome users from accessing the Yahoo search page unless they paid a higher service fee. In the context of Web 2.0's new media texts, here's where net neutrality fits in. Today's ways of creating and sharing content via Web 2.0 are often laden with large amounts of data. We can create professional quality videos, games, and texts with a newfound relative ease and thus far without restriction as to how much content we can create, share, and view. With the number of internet users increasing daily, along with the amount of content that is viewed, shared, and created, the internet is becoming congested. Essentially, opponents of net neutrality want to fix this congestion by limiting the type and amount of content that internet users can access. They advocate the selling of tiered service options that allow heavy users to pay more to access more content and at a faster speed than less heavy users. Proponents of net neutrality, on the other hand, claim that this is unfair and that all internet users should have access to the same content at the same speed and at the same price. They believe that it is the user who should be in control of what content they create and consume. According to SaveTheInternet.com, a leading pro-neutrality group, net neutrality prevents internet providers from blocking, speeding up, or slowing down web content based on its source, ownership, or destination. Now, the debate over net neutrality hinges on two things. It hinges on the concept of a free market versus the idea of equal access to information. Those who are for net neutrality tend to cite freedom of speech, opportunities for innovation, and ethical principles as the key reasons that net neutrality is necessary. Those who are against net neutrality most often cite free market capitalistic principles and the limited amount of available bandwidth as the pillars of their arguments. Now, let's take a closer look at these two sides. As I said, proponents of net neutrality most often cite freedom of speech, opportunities for innovation, and ethical principles as the reasons that we need a neutral net. SaveTheInternet.com likens a net neutrality law to the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. It claims that it's necessary to protect the rights of internet users to be able to select the content that they wish to create and view. This view is shared by most other neutrality advocates as well, who believe that the individual is responsible for being the gatekeeper of the information that he or she is exposed to, and that a corporation or government should not attempt to assume this role. This stance factors into the second major argument of net neutralists, that net neutrality fosters future innovations, while a non-neutral net does not. Lawrence Lessig and Robert McChesney argue in their Washington Post column that without net neutrality, the internet would start to look a lot like cable TV. A handful of massive companies would control the access and distribution of content, thereby deciding what you get to see and how much it will cost. Network neutrality minimizes control by network owners and invites outsiders to innovate. Net neutrality guarantees a free and competitive market for internet content. So, this idea applies directly to the context of new media content creation because it argues that if the net were not neutral, only those who could afford speeds fast enough to, say, produce a high-quality live video stream, for example, would be the ones who are able to do so. If this argument is correct, the amount, type, and quality of new media content that could be created and viewed will be based directly on one's income. The third factor that rounds out the argument for net neutrality is one of ethics. Net neutralists claim that a non-neutral net is one of discrimination. They assert that because a non-neutral internet bases its level and quality of available services on the prices that users pay, it would turn a formerly democratic form of communication into one that discriminates against users based solely on income. So, those are the three main arguments for net neutrality. The two main pillars of arguments against net neutrality are the principle of free market capitalism and the worry over the limited amount of available bandwidth. The argument for free market capitalism is a fairly straightforward one that I really think is relatively easy to understand. Internet service providers are for-profit entities in most nations. They believe that since they do not offer their service as a free public service, they should therefore be allowed to offer the version of their service with whatever limitations or restrictions that they see fit, really quite similar to cable TV companies. The second side of the argument against net neutrality is that there is currently a limited amount of available bandwidth, and that certain users and uses should take priority. One blogger puts it this way: different kinds of communication have different bandwidth requirements. Watching movies over the internet is bandwidth intensive, but probably not time critical. Teleconferences, though, are both bandwidth intensive and typically time critical. Even some applications like remote surgery, for example, are both incredibly time critical and bandwidth intensive, but are almost impossible over the public internet with current technology. Individuals and institutions on both sides of this debate are highly passionate about their viewpoints. All it takes is a quick scan of reader comments on virtually any online article, blog post, or the like will yield long and emotionally charged posts. But in my opinion, this issue is not clear-cut, and as I said earlier, my role in this discussion has not been to argue for or against the implementation of net neutrality policies. Rather, my goal is to provide you with the basic information that you need to create your own informed opinion on this topic. So, just to recap, the key arguments for net neutrality are that neutrality fosters innovations, does not discriminate against users, and promotes free speech, while the two main arguments against net neutrality are based on free market principles and the idea that certain uses of our limited available bandwidth should take precedence over others. I hope that my discussion of these two positions has indeed furthered your knowledge on this subject, but I strongly encourage you to look deeper into this issue on your own. A full list of my references, as well as the complete transcript of this podcast, can be found at www.johnaen4166.blogspot.com. Thanks for listening.